12th, and I hope you're having a great day enjoying this spring weather that we're experiencing, thank goodness, after such a long winter. Just with a quick show of hands, if you can let me know if you can see my screen, I'd appreciate it. Waiting for some hands. And doesn't look like, oh, there are the hands. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Okay, so we do have a couple new people on our webinar this morning, and just a quick recap of what we do during these webinars. They are held weekly, every Thursday at 9:30. They last about a half an hour, sometimes less, actually most times less. If you have questions, you can either type them in on the question box, and I'll read them aloud at the end of the webinar, and that way, of course, we all learn. Or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask your question live. These really are to be, the purpose, of course, is to really be informative and let you know the latest and greatest, tongue-in-cheek, on the PPACA law. So I encourage you to use this forum to get your questions asked because we all learn this way. So last week we actually had Steve Clemens join us. Steve is our Vice President of Life Markets, and he gave us some quick turnkey ideas on how to not only increase your commission, but increase your product lines with your clients, and of course, serve them well with the life insurance market. So I'm going to continue in this off cycle to have guest speakers, and I'm going to jump ahead down here to my 5th bullet point. But next week, we're going to have Christy Saul on the webinar. She's going to take about 5 minutes and explain what gap plans we have and really how they can, for sales moving forward during the qualifying event, really, serve your clients well. And also, for those clients that you want to go back to talk about the gap programs, that extra protection, and of course, certainly giving you plenty of time to be familiar with the product for the next open enrollment, which starts November 1st. So that's next week. But let's bump back up here to the first bullet point. I want to talk a little bit about the extension on the special election period. It's very specific, 3/15 to 4/30, and it is, again, specific to people that are currently not enrolled in coverage through the FFM for 2015, attest that when they filed their taxes for 2014, they had to pay the tax penalty for not having coverage in 2014, and they have to attest that they first became aware of or understood the implications of the individual tax penalty after the end of open enrollment by February 15th. So those 3 items have to be met, and they have to attest to this information. 3/15, you may notice, the 15th of the month is always the cutoff. So 3/15 is the 1 day and 1 day only to make application for these qualifiers for a 4/1 effective date. 3/16 to 4/15, of course, will give you a 5/1 effective date, and 4/16 to 4/30 will give you a 6/1 effective date. So if your clients want a 4/1 effective date and avoidance of the penalty for 2015, then Sunday the 15th is the only time to do it. This special election, as we mentioned last week, is only available via the FFM. However, the carriers that have the direct enrollment functionality, where you log into the carrier website and you redirect to healthcare.gov, those carriers, such as Highmark, will have that functionality that you can do the enrollment directly from the Highmark Blue Shield site via healthcare.gov with a redirect. So if you're not selling Highmark or selling a product that has this redirect capability, then of course the only option for a 4/1 effective date is directly with healthcare.gov, either online or over the phone. I did call yesterday to verify that information or the questions would be available for online, and they were unclear but thought that it would be available online. And of course, yesterday was the 11th, and the health insurance marketplace worker told me that we won't have any more information until closer to the 15th, at which time I pointed out, well, it is the 11th, and it's kind of silly that 4 days from now you have to know this answer and you don't have any idea at this point. So, you know, that's kind of what we've come to expect, hurry up and wait attitude, I guess. But so just be mindful of that special election period, because I do think there will be people that will take advantage of it. I talked to one of my agent partners yesterday, and he brought up a really good point, and I thought it was important enough to share. You know, of course, people that are eligible or enrolled in Medicare A and B, even Medicare A, are not eligible for subsidies. Those under 65 with Medicare due to a disability, they can certainly still make application via the FFM or off exchange, but they are not eligible for any sort of subsidy once they become Medicare eligible. And that holds true for those that are 64 when they make application, and sometime during that policy year or calendar year, they turn 65. At the point they turn 65, they are no longer eligible for subsidies. So I do think it's important enough to mention that when you are talking with your clients and you know that they will be turning 65 during the calendar year, that you definitely let them know that what their responsibilities are. And the responsibility is that they don't have to cancel their plan, but they do have to notify the marketplace of their Medicare eligibility and discontinue their subsidy. Otherwise, they'll have to pay it back. So just be mindful of that. You know, again, we are in our off-selling season right now, and I thought it was important to bring up the ERISA protection. We had talked about it last year and haven't really talked a whole lot about it this year in the heat of of open enrollment. But it is very important for you to be aware that for your employer groups, 2+, you know, two employees plus, the DOL is really cracking down on the ERISA compliance, meaning that your groups have to have summary of benefits of coverage, summary plan designs, different from summary of benefits of coverage, in place, essentially outlining how employees are treated with their health and welfare benefits, their obligations, the employer's obligations, you know, terms of eligibility. That needs to be on file. If the DOL performs an audit and these forms are not in place, the employer could face up to $110 per day per health and welfare benefit per employee fine. So it could get pretty steep. And the average cost, we work with 2 carriers that offer this ERISA protection. Task charges $200 setup fee and $700 for the year. And Prime Pay also offers, it's about $200 less, $250 sign up, and then $500 for the year for groups of 2 to 49. So it's definitely something that if you want to reach out to your groups, it's a good way to do it. We have an agent partner that goes around to groups and talks about these compliance issues, and not only does he get the ERISA benefits in that business, but he also typically gets a broker of record because their current broker was not giving them this information. So again, it's something to get into the door on your employer groups, but again, you're serving your clients, you're serving them to the best of your ability and protecting them from all of these, you know, vulnerabilities, if you will. The next bullet point, FFM upload link, that is on our website under Health Plan Options and under the FFM forms and links. I still encourage you to get every FFM application that you have into the system. We want to make sure that we start tracking these and start tracking them for commissions, so that if you aren't getting commission, of course we're not getting commission, and we want to make sure that you can claim those cases and start earning the money that you've worked so hard for. So I encourage you to use those. We'll skip over, we already talked about it, about Christy next week on the webinar talking to us for about 5 minutes, down to this next bullet point, which is 51,000 Highmark members were affected by the Anthem data breach. Letters are going out. If your client gets one of those letters, it does appear that they are offering credit protection. I don't know what vendor they're using and how they're going to do that, but the letters should be on their way to those affected in Pennsylvania. And that 51,000 was only for Pennsylvania, so definitely something that you want to be aware of. If your clients get that letter, I'd be interested in seeing what that letter actually says. So if you can get a hold of a copy of it and forward it to me, that would be great. The next bullet point is the Pay Who meeting in Erie on April 2nd. And Steve Fisher, who works for a large brokerage in Erie, Pennsylvania, is also the Pennsylvania Association of Health Underwriters president. He has put together an event which is on April 2nd from 8:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock. It's being held at the UPMC Health Plan Conference Room in Erie. And it's really going to be a panel that will include 2 state senators from Northwest PA, as well as a PA House member, or as well as PA House members who sit on the Insurance and Health Committees. They're going to talk about several different items. One of the items to be discussed certainly is the advent of the possibility of a Pennsylvania state-based exchange. So I'm going to, this invitation or information is going to be in my healthcare reform newsletter this morning. But if you are in the Erie area and have an interest in attending this, just let me know. I can pass your contact information or Steve's contact information on to you, and you can register. But it does seem to be something that if you're in the area and have an interest in all of these issues, or to even ask your questions of your state representatives, then that's something you might want to clear your calendar for. So that's really it. You know, it's bringing us up to date to our open forum. So at this point, it does look like we have some questions. But again, if you have questions and want to raise your hand, you can do that, and I'll unmute you. Or you can just type in your question here in the question chat box. So let's see. Oh, goodness gracious. So it looks like I'm not sure why people couldn't see my screen. I have no clue, but I apologize for that. So that looks like all the questions, just questions about my bullet points and not seeing my screen. So I apologize for that. I thought that was cleared up when we raised our hands. But so that really brings us to a conclusion. No questions today, and I look forward to talking with you next week, March 19th. As typical, we'll have some more information to share that I hope is helpful in your business and getting new clients. So as always, I thank you for your attendance and your business and your partnership, and I look forward to speaking with you next week. Bye-bye.